Welcome to Worthy. In this episode, I'm talking to Brian Adeba about his experience running for a political office in Canada. We'll also be discussing what prevents South Sudanese from running for political office in Canada, how South Sudanese can get involved in Canadian politics, and what advice he has for South Sudanese who want to get involved in Canadian politics. So Brian is an experienced policy strategist, editor, researcher, team leader, and stakeholder engagement specialist. He currently serves as a senior advisor for the Sentry, a Washington, D.C. based organization where his work focuses on the intersection of conflict and corruption. In the last federal election, Brian was a parliamentary candidate on the Liberal Party of Canada ticket for his constituency of Kitchener Centre in Canada, coming at an impressive third, more than double the Liberal share of votes in the riding compared to the last election. Brian holds degrees in journalism from Kelton University in Ottawa and the University of King's College in Halifax, Nova Scotia. He also holds a degree in communications from Daystar University in Nairobi, Kenya. Widely published, Brian has appeared on major television networks such as BBC World Service, CNN International, The Voice of America, Al Jazeera English, PBS NewsHour, and NPR. He has been quoted in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, and the Globe and Mail. Okay, thanks, Brian. Welcome to Quirty TV. Just wanted to say thank you for agreeing to be part of this. And this is a conversation that we need to have as South Sudanese living in Canada. This is our home now. We live transnationally. So South Sudan is our home, but Canada is also our home. I want to begin by asking about your experience when you ran for office. So first tell us what motivated you to run for office, and what are some of the things you've learned in the process?
Yeah, an excellent question and a very broad one. What motivated me? There are very pressing issues in the riding that I live in. There are issues with housing. There's an issue with jobs. There's an issue with the creeping privatization of healthcare. Although that did not fall within the federal purview, it has ramifications, and it behooves of politicians at the federal level to actually take a look at the issue and see how they can work with provinces to sort of address that issue. And so those are some issues that really, from a broad perspective, prompted me to put my hat in the race. Looking at all the other political parties that were represented in my riding and the platforms that they were campaigning on and their philosophical bent on these issues, I felt that they were not the best parties to address the issue. And I felt that the Liberal Party, on whose ticket I ran, was the best position to address those issues. And hence the reason I cast my hat into the race, and the rest is history.
Give us one reason why you picked, one or two, why you think the Liberal Party was the best option for your platform.
I think that the Liberal Party has this broad base and has this conscientious way of looking at things, right? Whereas with some parties, what you see is like there's this is the only way. It could be really, when you look at the platform, it's addressing a certain segment of the population. Either that is like the well-off, and you can see that in their platforms, in their emphasis on, for instance, on healthcare, privatizing healthcare. So you know that is a political party that caters to a certain demographic. And then on the other hand, you have parties that are probably on the left, that really think that we should just be dishing out the goodies to everyone, right? And that's also not a realistic proposal. The Liberal Party has something in the middle that addresses the concerns of everybody, a broad set of segments of the population of the society. And so that is why I felt it was the party that was best positioned to address these issues that I was concerned about, and hence the party on whose ticket I should run.
Okay, so now walk us through your experience from the time you decided to run and then the process in terms of getting into the position to run for the riding. Like, what was the process like?
So actually, to run as a politician requires you to have a vision, right? To have a broad 360-degree outlook of the problem that you want to address. And you may not have all the components in place. You know, the vision is composed of components. For instance, in a political party, in a political campaign, you want to run as a politician, you have this vision. I want to put my heart into the race because I want to address these broad issues. But there are certain technicalities that you may not have the skills to sort of accompany you in your implementation of your vision, right? For instance, what do you know about managing a campaign? Have you ever been in a campaign before? There are these technicalities. What about mobilizing people? How do you go about that? There's that component. How do you raise money? There's that component. So I did not have many of the technical skills that are required to actually allow you to have that vision. And the other thing is, you also have to be within a political party setting. So for me, the start was really just being a member of the political party. That was one. And then becoming a member of the riding association. Every riding or constituency, for those who may not be aware of the term, every constituency has an association. The association basically manages the affairs of of a particular political party in that constituency or riding, right? There's a chair, there's a board of governors, and there's a division of labor. There are people who are like finance secretaries, there's a policy secretary, stuff like that. So being within that environment for me sort of reinforced or gave me more ideas about how to go about my vision, to demystify the whole thing. Running for politics is really is a very scary thing, right? And especially for people like you and me in this part of the world or country where we don't float in those spaces, it's even more daunting, right? And so one of the things you need to do, or I embarked on doing, was to demystify the process for myself. Like, what are the kinds of elephants I need to fell, or big trees that I need to fell? So being within the riding association demystifies a lot of things for you. You begin to know, like, oh, okay, so there's these things that need to be done. There's these components that need to be addressed. And then for our party, there's a lot of resources to learn the technicalities. So I immersed myself into all the training courses. Like, I learned how to be a campaign manager. I took the course. I learned how to be a financial agent for a campaign. I did that. I learned how to be a field coordinator. I took the course. I learned how to do communications in a political setting. So education, really, it starts with this education. Once you are educated, then you begin to have confidence that you can actually now put into place all the pieces of the puzzle, all the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle that compose or make up your vision. Once all those pieces start to fit together, then now you can begin to focus on the broader vision, and then look for people who have the skills to help you move the vision ahead.
Okay.
And it's not a one-man thing too. The party also stands behind you. So like the effort starts from you. You got to find your campaign manager. You got to find all of that. Like, you got to be driving. You're the CEO. You have to drive that process. and then the party, the writing association, and all of that, all of those components will come and back you up. So that's how it started for me. Basically, demystify. I had a vision, demystify the process, and then learn the technicalities, and then now try to implement the vision.
Okay. So I'm interested in, so before you enter into demystifying the process, so
Yeah,
you join the writing association and then
yeah,
you on a voluntary basis.
yeah. It's
Now I'm
all volunteer.
interested in how you go from being a volunteer to being considered a possible candidate or a candidate.
Oh yeah, that's a good question. First of all, I'm consider me just as an ordinary citizen. I'm looking for um someone to represent me in parliament. What do you want? What do you want to see? Start with that question. What do you want to see in a person that represents you in parliament, represents your interests? First, that person has to be passionate about the issues that matter to you. That person has to have a certain reasonable level of experience, right? He or she, or whatever pronoun they choose, can articulate your issues with a reasonable level of intelligence and confidence and stuff like that. And for us, people of color, I mean, you have to sort of you have to have the basic requirements covered, right? Not for only for people of color, for anybody. Like at least you have a certain modicum of education and work experience. And we know that you've managed a little bit of you've managed people a little bit. Like you know something about how to work with people collaboratively, how to maybe manage people and stuff like that. So you need to like when people are looking for representatives, qualities in a representative, those are some of the basic requirements they want. You don't need to have a PhD or master's degree or whatever. You just need to have a certain acceptable level of education. It could be you finish high school, but you have good work experience under your belt, something like that, right? And you have a head on your shoulders. You follow the politics, you know the issues as well, because we expect you to actually know the issues or learn or want to learn, because you can't. Some of them you learn them on the way as you move towards implementing the vision, right? So you got to have all of those. Um, it takes a whole village after that for you to actually move forward. So it starts with you have to have the desire, and then you see the their requirements. Actually, the political party has certain requirements for you to enlist in. Like you gotta have you don't I don't want my representative to have a criminal record. I mean that's that, and so that's a requirement. The political parties have that. At least we must know that if ever you are in a place of responsibility, you're going to be a good steward of public coffers, public monies, and stuff like that. So that means you should not be bankrupt. You should not have stolen money. You just have to have a clean record. You don't have a criminal record. I don't want a criminal representing me as well. So stuff like that. So you have to have those basics clean. And so, for anyone who's aspiring to run for political office, those are some of the things that you need to, for young people especially who are aspired for political office. Those are some things that you need to put in perspective. You need to work hard. You need to have a certain level of education, work experience, and try to build some leadership skills. People also want to see that you have some volunteer experience, that you are keen about giving back to the community that you live in.
Right.
And so maybe you have worked in a soup kitchen, serving soup to the less privileged people who are going through hard times, or you donate money, or you must have that as well. It really helps. It's not entirely necessary, but it helps.
So it's not just about you having basic qualifications, also showing that you're also a good citizen, you also put in
Yes.
hours for other people, knowing your community.
Yeah.
So now if you meet all those requirements,
Yeah.
so how does it go from that? Because there may be other people who are as qualified as you in the writing who are
Yeah.
also volunteering. So how does it go from there to being considered? Do you put your name forward, or does someone suggest you so that you become a possible candidate?
Well, there is people may when they see certain qualities in you, they may actually approach you and say, "Have you considered running?" I've been approached to run for regional council over here. So that's something I'm not interested in, but like it can happen. People can come to you. Then there is you yourself taking the initiative, seeing that you have met the basic requirements, and you think yourself as a good potential candidate. You download the forms and you fill them out, and then you submit. So what happens? Um, it may so happen that you're not the only person who's interested to run in the same riding. There may be 3 people or 4 people, and they all submit their applications. And the party reviews all the applications and decides that all of these people are excellent candidates. So now it becomes a contest between your supporters within the riding association, within the riding association from your party. They'll all come together, and there'll be a vote. And you'll make speeches. You'll campaign. You have to talk to people and tell them why you think why you're the best candidate. And then there will be an election, and one person might be elected among the 4 that have submitted. So that's one route that can happen. Another route is you submit your application, and no one is interested, and no one else is interested, and you're the best candidate and the only one. So there will be no need for an election. Or you submit an application, other people submit their applications, and then they drop out. They're like, oh, this is not for me. They all drop out, and you're the single man or woman standing. And when the deadline, there's usually a deadline. When that deadline passes and there's no other person, then you get selected. Oh, the party, in fact, all the political parties here, within their law, also guidelines, they can decide to say, you know what, we're just gonna pick one person to run in this riding. No, no contest, no nothing. It happens. They have that privilege, right?
Who
So yeah.
decide? Is there like some sort of a mini election, or is there some party officials who decide that?
For the process I just described,
Yes, if they just say
that
we will
that
choose
will be
one.
the party leadership. The party leadership, for strategic reasons or whatever, they can decide. We're gonna bring in. They may even bring a candidate from outside the riding.
Oh,
Yeah, like for instance, a well-known person with a big reputation and stuff like that, with name recognition, and so it may happen. It rarely is the case, but it does happen.
okay. So
Yeah,
now let's say you've been selected by the party, and then you are the candidate who will contest with the other candidates in the other parties. Now, I wanted to know about your experience because I told you,
yeah,
and I'm going to read you some quotes from a study that was done at the Kelton University. It
yeah,
is called "Black on the Ballot:
yeah,
What Black Canadians Told Us About Running for and Serving in Elected Office." So these are some of the quotations. Anti-black racism at the doors and in the media. That's one of some of the things they're saying. The other one is campaigning in a remote, predominantly non-racialized area. They saw that concerns about safety due to racism in the area. And then there's also the issue of finance because you may be running against someone who is established and has support base, broad-based support, also has finances. So how did you navigate that when you were running?
So my experience is probably a little different from what you just read. First of all, I think this writing is very cosmopolitan, multiracial, very middle class, and urban. It's smack in the middle of town as well. So personally, I did not experience any overt racism thrown at me at the doors. In fact, if anything, people were kind of curious about um, this small statured man, trying to run for office. But it's not entirely something I think within this writing that would surprise them, given the demographic makeup of the writing itself. It's multiracial and stuff like that. And there's been previously also, I think, people of color who've represented this writing, who've also contested variously from various political parties, in terms of gender, in terms of whatever. So there's a diverse set of candidates that have come here. So people are not kind of surprised. I think it's a very largely open-minded writing. I had very, very interesting and very engaging conversations at the door. And I knocked at maybe something like maybe up to $34,000 or something, So it was, I think the most enjoyable part was really knocking on doors and getting to talk to people. Sure, I mean there are people who don't want strangers knocking on their doors. They don't open, or when they open, they don't have much to say. I'm like, oh, get out of my face or something like that happens. I had a few of those, but generally my experience was really positive, and I'm thankful for that.
So that's good to hear that you did not experience any form of racism. So before I go to the issue of finances and resources,
Yeah.
You're a member. I'm not sure whether you're still a member, but when you're running, you're a member of Liberal Party of Canada, and you hear things. You've even met the Prime Minister. Did you hear any cases of people facing this, like when they knock on doors, they face racism or they shut out within the party? Because I want people who are listening to know, if they run for office, they may not have the same experience you have, that positive experience.
Correct.
So they may be shocked if they realize, oh, Brian was running in this riding and it was all positive, and now I'm not getting the same sense. So did you hear things like that, and what would you advise, or what the party says about people who face things like that?
We had very little opportunity to interact a lot with other candidates from other ridings. There was only one occasion where we all met. And at that particular point, the conversation was really how to get the campaign started. We hadn't started knocking on doors yet. And that was, it was only a brief 30-minute affair. We had the Prime Minister over and we were waiting for him, and that's when we really started to interact. But the conversation was really centered on how to get our campaigns off. So at that particular point, the key thing or worry among some of the candidates' minds was getting a campaign manager, getting office space. That's really difficult because you're renting an office for a month. It's not very desirable to landlords. They want something long term, and so finding office space was quite a challenge. And so those were the challenges that we were discussing, and we were from several kinds of. We were from different races, so to speak. But those were the conversations we had. So we hadn't really delved into like what were the challenges at the doors. At that particular point, we hadn't even started. We had started knocking on doors, so for some of us, but not much. The campaign was just still in its very initial phases. But there was a question you were asking about money, and that's the thing that kind of when we talk of demystifying the election process, and especially for if you come from another part of the world where you have to raise all your money and whatever. First of all, here they're very, very strict. These are established democracies. They're very strict rules and regulations on how much you can spend in a campaign and on how much you can raise. and you have to account for every single penny. So typically, as the candidate, you don't have to have your own money. You can, but there's actually a limit of how much you can donate to a campaign. For instance, if you had 20,000, you cannot donate that to your campaign, to your own campaign. You can't. There's a limit. I think it's about what, 5,000 only, or 2,000? No, 2,000. And that's basically it. So 2,000 is not going to do anything. You need over 50,000 to run a campaign. So the Writing Association, one of its key jobs is to raise money. Okay. So throughout the election interval, let's say the next election is in 5 years, 4 years, all this time the Writing Association is raising money and bolstering its coffers to prepare for the election. So you as a candidate, it's good to have money, but know that even if you had 10,000, you can't donate that to your campaign. There's a limit. At most, I think it was for us, it was 1,750. That's it. In the coming year. Yeah.
I heard cases of candidates running and they talked about the problems with money, that it was difficult for them to raise money. Do you think it's the party that is well organized, or is it your writing that is well organized?
Yeah, the Writing Association, if it's not well organized, and it's not able to, like you have to have, it's all volunteer based, by the way, and therefore, if you don't have dedicated people who are really pushing to fundraise, then that becomes a challenge. Yeah, it's true for some writings, especially in rural areas. I would think that there's that problem of raising funds. So that's that. So throughout, by the way, and then one of the things, how do you raise money for the writing? I volunteered for the Writing Association. Sometimes we do the phone banking the whole day, right? You're calling. There's a minimum of I think you have to call 400 calls. You have to make 400 calls. These are cold calls. So you're calling someone. Hi, my name is Brian Adeba. I'm with the Liberal Party. I'm calling to see if you'd be willing to donate $100 to the party, And then you mentioned there's usually a hook about why they should donate. There's usually an issue and stuff like that. And if they say yes, then you note down how much are you going to contribute, and they'll tell you, right? So that's one way of fundraising. The other fun way of fundraising is you invite prominent speakers to come to your writing to give speeches. And what happens typically is that there's an entry fee, right? And so you get that. And then there are like committed members of the party make a monthly donation. Like myself, I make a monthly donation that's taken from my account every month. So those are the various ways of how political parties raise money. Now, let's say your writing association is very hardworking. They raise $500,000. But in most cases, there's a cap on how much you can spend on a campaign. Elections Canada sets that. So let's say it's 80,000. So you have 500,000. That's of no use to you, right? For the election. So the whole purpose is to give everyone a level playing field. Yeah. So that corporations or rich people or foreigners can steal your election. That's the whole thing. Yeah. So you don't have to worry about where am I getting the money. But if you have a network of people who can contribute money, then you can fundraise with them to contribute to the Writing Association, and that money will be in the account of the association to prepare for the next election. Or even as you are selected as a candidate, when you're selected as a candidate and you have that network, you can ask people to donate to the party, to your Writing Association, to help with the campaign. And there's always a limit also of how much they can give. They can't, Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing, and which we would suggest to people, is if they consider running for a certain office and certain writing, then they have to get close to that riding to see how organized that place is, how funds are raised, and what they could do to get involved. So
Yeah,
that they, for example, in your riding, it's well organized and the fun is there, the volunteers are there, but it may not be the same in other places.
yeah. The data shows that every political party during a campaign um, encounters challenges with volunteers to do their door knocking, and with technology and everything. So things are changing too. Like while I think the door knocking remains one of the most powerful ways of getting your message out and interacting with the audience, with electors, and them getting to see you face to face. There's also like social media and all of that, and you have to become adept at utilizing social media to get the word out, and that all comes to the campaign. The budget itself that you'll get will be, it will be portioned for all of these tasks. There's the social media. There's whether you buy an ad on TV or on in the newspaper, on Facebook, and social media, across several platforms on social media. So that's what the money will be used for. Um, but I want to say this for anyone who's running, who wants to run, because those are some of the things that kind of like kill the vision for you. Like, where do I get the money? Where do I get the campaign manager and whatever? So I hope this contributes to demystifying the big myth about the challenges of running. So yeah, there's money, but you have to do a lot of work to educate yourself also. The political campaign is a very, very unique campaign. Like I've been in many campaigns on other things like advocacy campaigns, media campaigns, and whatever. But the political campaign encompasses all of those, and it's unique in its own way. It has its own life. It has its own um, systems, and you got to learn that and put all of those together. And to learn that, you have to take advantage of the resources available, even on YouTube. By the way, YouTube is a great university. You can teach yourself so many things, right?
That's true.
Yeah, how to make a stump speech.
That's
Like
true.
first time I had that, I read it in a book. Abraham Lincoln was making his stump speech, and I was like, "What's a stump speech?" And I went on YouTube, and I realized, oh, okay, it's this one speech that you say over and over again when you meet audiences about why you're running and why people should vote for you.
Sort of pivoting on some issues.
Yeah, yeah, you could pivot, but like there's a bedrock to it that will remain constant. It's your story. Yeah.
So before we've done that part. So now I want to shift to why, for example, South Sudanese don't run for office. But before we do that, I want us to talk about, because you were running for an office at Kitchener Center. So people who are listening may not know, especially people maybe listening to in other places don't know Canada. So
Yeah.
where is that place? Where's that riding?
So Kitchener Center is located in um, first of all, it's the province, uh, or what you may call a state in Australia, or in
US.
other parts, or the US. Here we call them provinces. So the province where Kitchener is located is Ontario. It's in the east of Canada. The biggest city near Kitchener is the city of Toronto, which is a big financial hub for Canada. And where Kitchener Center is just 1 hour southwest of Toronto. Kitchener, if you're from the Sudans, it's actually named after Lord Kitchener, Herbert Walker Kitchener, something like that. Lord Kitchener of Khartoum. And this was the British colonial officer who was tasked with recapturing the Sudan from the Mahdi. So this city itself was founded by German immigrants, and its name initially was Berlin. Um, But Lord Kitchener, after Khartoum, went on to have a very distinguished career in the British civil service and was Secretary of, I think, of the Navy or of War or something, was a cabinet minister. But then he was on this ship that was blown up by a German torpedo. And there was a lot of anti-German sentiment back then in Canada because Canada was part of the British Empire back then. And the citizens voted in a referendum that changed the name from Berlin to Kitchener in honor of Kitchener, who had just died in 1914, I think. Yeah.
Okay. So it's just actually a good historical note to have,
Yep.
connecting this Kitchener with the South Sudan, because we all know that Kitchener is the one who sought, we are not
Yep.
political correct, revenge. He
Yep.
took revenge on Gordon,
On
who
the
was
Mahdi.
killed.
Yeah.
Defeated the Mahdis because they were really upset about the killing of Charles
Yeah.
Gordon.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you. So when I post this, I'll put a map showing where Kitchener is so people can see.
Right. Right.
Now I want to go to the question of why South Sudanese do not run for office. So why, from your experience, why do you think that's the case? And
it's a very good question. You know, South Sudanese started coming to Canada like in the early 80s. The bulk of the people here immigrated in the 90s, early 2000s. The South Sudanese immigrants come from a diverse set of backgrounds. And there are people who immigrated from the refugee camps, and then those who were urban refugees and left, largely the middle class that left in the 90s, and got resettled in various parts of the world. So from that period really is when South Sudanese started getting out of Sudan back then because of the instability and the war. So South Sudanese are scattered all over the world. There's a community in Australia, Europe, UK, and over here. Now, the barriers that prevent people from running are many. I don't even know where where to start.
can just pick a few and
yeah, one is actually also the issue of the mindset of the the typical mindset of the immigrant is I'm in this new country. 5 years later, I'm going back.
Okay.
Yeah. So why should I even get involved in politics? It's I'm not planning to make this my home. And then they get to work. Then they get if they're single, they get married. Then suddenly they have the mortgage. Then they have other financial responsibilities. The kid think of themselves more as Canadian and nothing else. You go back to South Sudan, you don't quite fit anymore. And you're like, oh, this is not what I expected. And yeah, but like being torn between, that kind of mindset prevents you from running for politics. And then the years elapse, and you realize you can't go back, but you don't quite fit in here as well because of also like, how do I actually even get involved in politics? I don't even know anyone in politics who looks like me, who I can talk to maybe give me some guidance about what to do. By the way, this is very, very important. Representation is very important. Role models.
I just wanted to catch what he just said. When people see no one that looks like them is in any public office. So do you think that is one of the issues where people would say, yeah, this is not for me? They don't even want to try.
They don't even want to try. If you talk to, in our community, if you talk to people who sell life insurance, and the challenges they had to convince people to buy life insurance, because it's not in our mindset. It's
you want me to die?
You want me to die? That's their thinking. You're gonna die anyways. I mean, all of us are. And so it took a lot of convincing. And one of the things that really made the breakthrough was to see life insurance agents who look like you coming to talk to you about it in your language, right? So so that's important, and that's the breakthrough really. When people started to speak to you in Tongjiang or Mundare or whatever, the gospel becomes very clear, right? So we don't have those kinds of role models. And in some communities that are well established, you'll find they have role models in every sector. They're lawyers, they're life insurance people, there are investors, there are people who do trading on the stock exchange, and everything. And so there are various resources within the community, role models that you can look at. Uncle so and so he's actually a city councilor. Maybe we have to, if you don't have that, it actually limits your capacity to think broadly in some instances, and I think that's an issue. And that's why it's important that those of us, or those from our community that have the aspiration to get into politics, we should be exchanging information, we should be talking to each other, we should be putting our name forward to run for political office. We have the capacity now, the training, the education, the experience, and nothing should really prevent us from harnessing the benefits of living in a democracy, right? And one of the benefits of living in a democracy is that every common person can actually run for political office. So we need to look into that. I'm happy to know right now that we do have South Sudanese Canadians that are elected into office right now. So we have there's a gentleman in Saskatoon who's been elected to city council. There's another gentleman in Brandon Brandon, Manitoba, who was previously elected into city council. We have a young person right now running for city council in Calgary. And I think that's impressive, and we need to increase that number. Ultimately, we need to kind of get together those who have political. We must create a platform for those who have political aspirations, so that um, we mentor each other. We share or exchange information on best practices and what to do, and information, and share experiences. So there's room for that, and I'm glad to see that people are waking up. No one has, to the best of my knowledge, when I ask around, no one from our community has actually run federally before. This is the first time, and I think it's a good experience. I think people can. I hope I can be a reserve or a resource if anyone wants is aspiring to run for political office and has questions. Let's exchange information, and and also I want to say that for the South Sudanese Canadian community, if someone from your community puts their name forward to run for political office and requires support, regardless of what political party you belong to, please rally behind that person. Right? We need to. We need to do that. Yeah.
That's really, really good to say. And definitely, that is one of the reasons why I talk to you, because you will be a good resource. Now, I didn't even know, I know Gar in Calgary. I know him, I've met him personally. He's running. He's actually tried before to run for the provincial legislature.
Yep.
The other one's in Saskatoon, and in Brandon, Manitoba. I'll connect with them, and these are people we need to know. So thank
Yep.
you for bringing that one out. So there's something you said, and that relates to the question of access. So you said earlier that one of the challenges is that we don't run in these circles where you get to get information about running.
Yep.
So, and that is a problem with communities that are marginal. They live at the margin of society. And South Sudanese, like other immigrants and refugees who came to Canada, live at the margin of society. And access to this information, inside information, is the challenge. So you talked about joining a riding. That's one way in which you can get access to information. So what are other ways where you think people can get access to this insider information so that they don't feel like, people like us don't work in those circles, so this is not for us, I can't run for office?
So if you ask they say if you knock on the door and you ask, you'll always get the responses. And I think one of the things we don't flood in these spaces. That's true. One of the things that I did personally was talk to a lot of politicians who've run before, and get their insights. Self-education. Uh, Sadly, politics is really also, I think, a very elite process in a way. Um, and 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 you can actually feel on the margins here, but it's not insurmountable. That that challenge itself is not. It can be overcome. Um, in anything that you want to do, really, if you've not done it before, it looks so like rocket science until you actually. I'll give you an example of spaces we don't float in, like trading stocks or managing your own stocks online or whatever. This is something that we don't do typically. Not only us, but a lot of ordinary people. They don't have to be South Sudanese. This is not something that normally people do. My first introduction to this thing was listening to the radio with my father. He's listening to the BBC, and you'll have the world news, and after the world news, now you have the business news, and I'll hear these things like the FTSE, the Brent crude selling for whatever, the futures, and I would ask him, what are these things? And he had a complicated answer that doesn't register in my mind. So at some stage in my life, I said I wanted to kind of learn that stuff. So what I did, I bought the book. I went online. I read and read and read and read, and went online. This is actually even before YouTube. So I bought the book. There's a few people talking about it online. I reviewed what they talked about, and learned the lingo, the terminology, and I realized, it's not that difficult actually. I can do it, and then I started doing it, right? And I'm not saying like a big whatever, but like in small sums there. But so you can actually do these things. And if me, the little boy from Atlabara, Juba, can do this, I think a lot of people can do that. You just need you need to know how to read and write. Basically, that's it. If you know how to read and write, and you put your mind to it, you'll begin to know, like, okay, like if there's a, like to read a stock, like, look at the analytics, like how has it been performing from a certain period to a certain period. You can see that, and then you can actually make a deduction or make a choice and say, okay, based on the how it has performed, there's the graphs and everything. You can, all of that stuff, you can learn it, right? Similarly with politics, let it not be a barrier. Getting into politics should not be a barrier. It's true, we don't float in these spaces, but it does not mean that we cannot learn how to float in these spaces. You can, right?
So the question is, as long as you express your interest and you want to run an office, the question is, where do you find information? And then you go out and ask and learn on your own and see who can help you, and then find information to help you in the process.
Absolutely. Yeah, you talk to people who've run before. You talk to campaign managers. You go online and read. There's actually lots of resources online. Simple Google search will give you that information. You go to YouTube. You'll watch people making speeches. You'll watch people talking about how to structure your campaign. You learn all of that, and then within the political party itself, there are training sessions on how to do all of these things: how to be a campaign manager, how to fundraise, how to do communications, how to be a field coordinator or volunteer coordinator, how to make a pitch. When you knock at the door, what do you say? All of that stuff, you'll learn it. They'll teach you that. Yeah, and yeah. So there's this sophisticated stuff about party policies and platform and whatever. The party will give you the platform. Yeah, there's like, here's what we stand on Palestine, for instance. Yeah, here's what we stand. Because when you knock at the doors, people are going to ask you, what's your party's position on jobs for young people? Yeah. I mean, like that's a question that can sound so sophisticated, but like usually within the party has a platform. A platform is like these are the things that we are running on, and this is our position on these issues. So
Especially
you,
for the Westminster model we have,
yeah, yeah,
which is different from what other countries have, where
uh,
the party with the majority, we don't elect the prime minister directly. We elect the
no,
prime minister through the MPs, which
yeah,
is
through the
different. Yeah.
MPs. The party with the most MPs elected to the House gets to form government.
Okay. So
Yep.
before I go to the last part, which is your advice for the young ones, I want to go back to the question of marginality, being marginalized.
Yep.
And as much for what I like is your campaign was positive. So that's something that I think is helpful. And I hope people who run have a positive experience like yours. Unfortunately, we live in a society where discriminatory structures are in place, and some people are perceived from narratives, historical narratives, narratives that continue to marginalize some people. So, do you think that perceptions where people are seen as not politician material, because if we think about a politician in Canada, there's certain image that is conjured up in our minds as how that politician should look like. So if Brian shows up at the door and he says, I'm running for the Liberal Party of Canada to be your MP, people will not easily associate. They will process it for a while to say, okay, this will make sense after a while. But if someone of European descent was to show up at the door and knocks at the door, and they say, I'm running for an office, people will see it as common sense. Do you?
Yeah. I mean, because that's what they have been used to seeing.
Mhm,
But like the demographics are changing too, right? So
mhm.
now it's a multiracial society, and I'm not saying that it's going to be a smooth run. Not Prejudices still exist in certain segments of the population, even within your constituency. You'll likely find that, but largely, I think people there's more good people than there are bad people, in my opinion.
Very true.
Right. And then also, I want to say something about, especially for people from minority groups, because of the systemic challenges that kind of put people, some segments of the population down and all of that. I think also how you should approach this is you should not, when you approach a problem, don't approach an issue by thinking about the challenges. Um, by focusing so much, or second guessing anything, like you know um, true, there's been the injustices that have happened a lot in the past, and are continuing to happen, but like don't come into an enterprise with that as your core thinking, or you will not go ahead. If you have a vision for something, do not begin to think about, like, let's say you have a vision to create a party, no, not a party, a business that supplies um, stuff for people who are having a good time, like you're holding a party, right? What can you think of? The grand vision is, I want to have these things, this uh, company to help people have a good time. But like when you think of the components of that, you need a DJ. But when you start to think of, oh, but I don't know how to DJ. Oh, getting a DJ is going to be difficult. You're not going to get out of the vision. Get ahead and then look around. Who knows how to DJ? And you go find that person. Similarly, when you approach politics, there are systemic injustices, there's structural limitations in the system sometimes. Do not come into the race with those as your primary focus of, like, that should not be so much embedded in your thinking. think about the positive first, like the grand big thing. What can I do?
That's right.
Yeah, you're going to find those the people with prejudices and whatever. But like when you've mapped out the grand vision, the big one, those would be like a fly on your skin. You just wipe them away. They may hurt, but you move ahead. So that's my advice, really. I don't know if I put it correctly.
Yeah, that makes sense because
Yeah,
in the social service sector, there's this thing we call it deficit approach and a strength-based approach. So some researchers, sociologists, social workers, they would go to a certain community, and what they pivot on are the weaknesses of the community. They don't look at what are some strengths in the community, what are the best things they can do to
correct.
help themselves, as opposed to approaching them as if they are completely helpless. So it goes to what you were saying. So instead of focusing on what someone doesn't know, one can focus on, okay, I don't know, but I can know it. How can I know it? So that
Yeah,
someone, focuses on what you can do rather than what you cannot do. And if there's something you cannot do, you look for the ways to do it. All right.
correct. Yeah.
So, just we are almost to where we have about 6 minutes. So, what advice can you give to young people who want to run for office? Because this is this is our home
Yeah.
for people. People don't want to believe it, but yes, this is our home also.
Right.
And also, what advice can you give for people who, yes, you want to go home, that's okay, you want to go back to South Sudan, but this is also your home. How can they make sense of that to say you can get involved in politics here without dissociating with the politics in South Sudan?
Right. Let me tackle the first one about what advice can I give to people who want to run into politics? First of all,
Especially
I
young
think,
people.
yeah,
Mhm.
mindset. Everything starts here. If you change your mindset, you gotta change your mindset, right? It all really starts here, and I learned a lot about myself um, from that process. So have the mindset. You gotta shift your mindset, right? When you shift your mindset, begin to picture yourself in that situation. Follow the news, learn the news. That's one. uh, Talk to a lot of people who have run in politics, who've run for political office. You'll get to learn certain things, and you'll find that all of them are human too. There's no superhuman that comes into this. Immerse yourself in the circles that float in those spaces. Uh, Join your writing association. Yeah, join your writing association. They're always looking for volunteers, right? And unfortunately, in this part of the world, a lot of the volunteers are people who are retired or retiring, So there's political parties want young blood. So come in, join your writing association, and watch and learn, right? Watch and learn. Um, so that's that. Get immersed into the platforms where the political party offers resources for training, for upgrading skills, and all of that. Join that. Um, trust me. If you do all of those things, you would have demystified the process for yourself, and you would be ready to run for political office.
Then the last part about people who want to say, okay, if I run for an office in Canada, then it's like sort of dissociating from being a South Sudanese. And is it possible to get involved in politics in Canada and still get involved in politics in South Sudan?
Well, I think so. I mean, like if you have dual citizenship, um, um, I would imagine that the South Sudan constitution would not bar you from running for political office if you ran in Australia, for instance. It would not. But then it will boil down to what you really want. There's no contradiction. Many immigrants still have family living in South Sudan or in their countries of origin, and naturally they care about what happens there, right? The politics there. Like if you have your mom living in Serbia, or I mean living in Congo, and you're here and you ran for political office, you would be concerned about the politics of Congo because they affect your mom directly, right? So it's not a contradiction in certain ways. Um, yeah, and it does not prevent you from speaking out about the politics that's happening in your country of birth. I don't believe there's a contradiction there.
And also, if there are many South Sudanese politicians in federal office, for example, in Ottawa, they can actually speak on things that are happening in South Sudan. They can influence policy in South Sudan in
Exactly.
terms of the issues happening now in the country.
Right. Yeah. That is certainly true. Yeah.
So thank you, Brian. This is really has been enlightening, and I'm very sure we'll still talk on issues because you know a lot about these issues. So one of the
Sure.
things I want to do is I will talk about issues in South Sudan, but issues that are affecting South Sudanese here in Canada
Yeah.
or in other places like in the US. So I'll make call on you if I feel there's a topic on which you are very conversant. But I want to say thank you for being part of this, and I think people are going to enjoy the wealth of information you've shared. So any last word you want to say?
Not much. Thank you for inviting me. I hope anyone who's listening to this is inspired, and I'm available online anytime you want to talk to me. Shoot me a message, and we'll get it going.
So thank you very much.